If you laugh,
Ah.
you have all the best
I guess I
exercises.
should stop chewing the celery now.
This is the Berkowitz Bar Mitzvah, right?
Actually, it looks like you're about to tell us a bedtime story.
I feel like Masterpiece Theater.
Grandpa would
Or else actually,
Grandpa
you know what I
would
really feel like saying? I feel like saying to all of you, so how does that make you feel? I'm sorry our time's up for this week, but welcome, my brothers and sisters, to the summer 2007 regional gathering of the Tri-State Celebrants. Tri-State being, in this case, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. On behalf of the Celebrant USA Foundation and Institute and our gracious and generous host, Sarmas, I'd like to greet you all. My name is Jack Ghaffari, and I'm a celebrant from right here in exotic Essex County. Tonight we're going to be hearing from Howard Spearer, a leading member of the wonderful men's group, Men's Division International. He's going to be talking about the importance and impact of men's rituals, and he's going to have some fascinating examples. And Adam Phillips is here, a New York celebrant who's been focusing on men's rites of passage and that kind of work in this community. And of course, you're going to be hearing from me first. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you all to turn off all the ringing, buzzing, and vibrating devices that tie us to the outside world of deadlines and responsibility. We want to dedicate this time to community and to the gathering of heart and spirit. All right, I'm going to light a candle and help us focus on the light and the warmth that we're going to share this evening. So this is to give us some silence. Charlotte gave me a toy.
You missed that class, I guess.
I just failed it. Tonight we're gathered in this home to meld our hearts, our spirits, and our energies, and to further our work as builders of ceremony and creators of ritual. We have devoted ourselves to the beloved community, and we wish to increase our knowledge and ability to honor and to heal. May it be so. Okay, tonight we're going to be looking at men's rituals and ceremony, something that came up as a topic in this very house right around this fireplace. And it's a wonderful topic and one that really deserves to be put on the table and discussed. It's an honor and a blessing to me to look around and see such a great mixture of the two genders. I think that's a wonderful thing. Being a celebrant, I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you the ancient story of Tiresias. Anybody know the myth of Tiresias? Most of you must do. He was a blind prophet. He was the most famous soothsayer in ancient Greece. And one day he was walking through the woods with his staff, and he saw two great snakes mating on the ground. And without thinking, he reached down and smacked the two snakes and was immediately turned into a woman. Some stories have her marrying, serving as a temple prostitute. We could have a whole discussion about that. And then one day she's walking through the woods again and sees the two same great snakes mating again, and reaches down and smacks them with her staff. Although one myth has her refraining from smacking them with her staff. But either way, she's changed immediately back into a man. Shortly thereafter, Zeus and Hera are having an argument about which sex enjoys the act of sex more. Zeus says it's the woman. Hera says no, it's the man. So they say we have to consult Tiresias, because Tiresias knows what it's like to have life experience as a man and life experience as a woman. You can imagine Tiresias, this is a great position to be in. He basically agrees with Zeus and says, no, 9 parts of the pleasure out of 10 go to the woman. So Hera is very angry and she strikes him blind. And since Zeus can't undo the doing of another deity, he gives him the gift of prophecy and becomes a very powerful prophet. In fact, Odysseus goes to the land of the dead after Tiresias is dead and consults with him. That's how powerful he is. As celebrants, we have a responsibility to initiate dialogue like this, like we're doing tonight. Dialogue's a great word. It comes from the Greek dia, across, and we again meaning to speak across. Because we've taken upon ourselves the responsibility to bring meaningful and intentional ritual back into a society that's literally ill from the vacuum that's created by the absence of these kind of discussions and by the absence of meaningful acknowledgement of rites of passage. In terms of archetype, hopefully, we are trying to be the wise ones, the sages, the wizards, the magicians, the healers. And any study of shamanism will confirm that these roles may be gender specific when you look at primitive and pre-modern cultures, but the shamans were never limited by sexual role or gender role. They were shapeshifters. And here we are in the postmodern era, the third stage feminist era. It's very important, and we're in Western civilization, whether we like it or not, 21st century Western civilization. It's especially important to look at that fact that healers can't be limited by roles of gender. And I think that, personally, perhaps the most prevalent ills that we suffer from as a society stem from a mythology that's been created that is actually very unhealthy and systemic, and that's the myth of a superior gender. Now, because of all we've learned from women through the study of feminism and the onset of second and third stage feminism, we know that's a falsehood. Yet we're all, as a society, still acting out these scenarios that are based on macho masculinity. And I've always believed that true equality of the sexes can't come about until men become liberated from these roles and seek out and embrace the masculine divine. Okay, I'm going to go back to Tiresias for one quick second. Unlike other wise man archetypes like Odin in Norse mythology or Utnapishtim from the Gilgamesh epic, here we have the wisest sage in Greek mythology. So wise, as I said, Odysseus went and asked him questions after he was dead. He's a complete amalgam of the anima and the animus. He's wise because he's complete and whole, and he's whole because he's balanced in both his feminine and masculine natures. So that's kind of cool. I mean, we know there's a collective wisdom among women, and we know there's a collective wisdom among men. And each of us, whether we're male or female, has to travel our journey and our path and deal with pain and deal with struggle and loss and magic and transformation, hard work, rebirth, all these things. So it's interesting to ask, why do we feel it necessary to separate, to discover and celebrate these things? Women's moon circle over here on the left, and the Iron Man drumming circle for the guys over on the right. Everybody. Of course, this isn't to say that each gender should or should not gather together to celebrate, support, and affirm one another. But in my opinion, that these efforts can be really divisive if there's not an intentionality to honor both the other gender and that gender's presence and expression within our own gender, within our own psyches. I believe that most of what we consider evil in the world comes from lines of separation that have been drawn between race or gender or a sexual preference or age or class, And if we ever look at someone else with contempt, whether they're a Republican or whatever, then we're not seeing those people as individual human beings. We've created an other. We don't see this as someone who's at their individual point of enlightenment. We've created an other. And that's the beginning of all rationales for persecution. So we're all guilty of that. I mean, it's something we all have to work to overcome. Before I had the honor of performing my first croning ceremony, someone said to me, "You think it's appropriate for you to do a croning ceremony?" And if that were true, would that mean that a woman couldn't perform a young man's coming of age ceremony? Or that a male celebrant couldn't or shouldn't perform a ceremony to celebrate his daughter's onset of menses? Who gets to preside over a ceremony of reincorporation into community? Who gets to name the baby? All these questions come up, and they're worth pondering. But the bottom line question for us as celebrants is, how do we as individual celebrants consciously integrate and then call forth both our anima and our animus to do the work that is as healthy and constructive and healing as possible? That's the real question, I think, is how do we embrace both sides of our nature? It begins by honoring both contrasexual archetypes.